The bitter Arctic wind howled across the frozen tundra as Captain Jane Foster guided her snowmobile through the gathering storm. Her white husky, Storm, sat alertly behind her, his thick fur ruffling in the wind. As the military's top veterinarian at the Thule Air Base in Greenland, Jane was used to harsh conditions, but tonight felt different. The aurora borealis danced overhead with unusual intensity, casting ethereal green and purple lights across the snow. "Something's not right, boy," Jane muttered as Storm's ears perked up. The emergency beacon they were tracking had appeared suddenly on their systems an hour ago, its signature unlike anything they'd encountered before. Base Command assumed it was a downed research drone, but Jane's instincts told her otherwise. Storm suddenly barked, his eyes fixed on something in the distance. Through the swirling snow, Jane spotted an otherworldly glow emanating from behind a ridge. She killed the snowmobile's engine and drew her service pistol, years of military training kicking in. "Stay close," she whispered to Storm as they crept forward. What they found made Jane's breath catch in her throat. A sleek vessel of impossible design lay half buried in the snow, its crystalline surface pulsing with internal light. It was roughly the size of a small jet, but its organic, flowing lines spoke of technology far beyond human capability. Storm growled softly, his hackles rising. A section of the ship's hull seemed to have cracked on impact, and through the opening, Jane could see movement. She approached cautiously, Storm at her heels. Inside, surrounded by scattered crystalline fragments, lay a being that defied explanation. Humanoid in form but composed of living crystal, its transparent skin revealed internal structures that glowed with failing light. The being's eyes opened, revealing faceted depths that reflected the aurora above. "Please," it spoke, its voice like wind through crystal chimes. "Help me." Jane holstered her weapon and rushed forward, medical training overriding her shock. The being's crystal form was damaged, fractures spreading across its surface. Storm whined and moved closer, his initial wariness replaced by concern. "I'm a doctor," Jane said, kneeling beside the alien. "I can help, but I need to understand what's wrong." "My core, destabilizing," the being managed, lifting a crystalline hand that sparkled even in its weakened state. "The crash damaged my containment matrix." Jane's mind raced. Her medical knowledge of human and animal anatomy meant nothing here, but maybe. "Your structure reminds me of crystalline formations. Do you need energy? Heat?" The alien's eyes flickered. "Yes, but not heat. Light, specific frequencies." A memory flashed through Jane's mind, the specialized UV equipment she used for treating seasonal affective disorder in the base's working dogs. "I have something that might help, but we need to move you. My base isn't far." The being's light dimmed further. Others, pursuing. Dangerous. Storm's head snapped up, his attention drawn to the sky. Jane followed his gaze and saw multiple lights moving against the aurora, too fast and too precise to be natural phenomena. Her heart raced as she realized the implications. They weren't alone up here. "We don't have much choice," Jane said firmly. "I'm not leaving you here to die." She paused, realizing something. "I'm Jane Foster, and this is Storm. What should I call you?" The crystalline being's light pulsed slightly stronger. "In your language, closest would be Lumina." Jane nodded, already formulating a plan. "Okay, Lumina. Let's get you out of here. Storm, guard." The husky moved to a protective position as Jane began preparing for emergency transport, knowing that whatever those lights in the sky were, they were running out of time. She'd need to modify her snowmobile's trailer, create some kind of insulated space. The medical supplies in her kit might help stabilize Lumina temporarily. But most importantly, they needed to move fast. Those lights were getting closer, and Jane had a feeling they weren't friendly. As she worked, Storm kept watch, his presence reassuring. Jane had always trusted her dog's instincts, and right now, he seemed determined to protect their new alien friend. Whatever was coming, they would face it together. The aurora pulsed brighter overhead, as if nature itself was watching this first contact between worlds. Jane Foster, the military vet who'd expected nothing more exciting than treating cold-stressed sled dogs, now found herself at the center of something far bigger than she could have imagined. But as she looked at Lumina's weakening form and the approaching lights in the sky, she knew one thing for certain: this was only the beginning. The medical bay at Thule Air Base hummed with equipment as Jane worked frantically to stabilize Lumina. She'd converted a phototherapy unit into a makeshift energy chamber, its specialized lights bathing the crystalline being in carefully calibrated frequencies. Storm kept watch at the door, his protective instincts on high alert. "Your cellular structure is remarkable," Jane murmured, studying readings that defied conventional biology. "The way you absorb and process light energy." Lumina's crystalline form had begun to stabilize, the fractures slowly healing as she absorbed the artificial light. "We evolved in a binary star system," she explained, her voice stronger now. "Our bodies adapted to harness and store stellar energy. Which makes you valuable to those pursuing you," Jane deduced, remembering the mysterious lights in the sky. They'd barely made it back to base before the storm intensified, covering their tracks. Lumina's faceted eyes dimmed. "The harvesters. They discovered our world centuries ago, realized what we could offer." She paused, internal lights flickering with emotion. "My people are living batteries to them, power sources to be drained and discarded." Jane's hands clenched. "How many of your people survived?" "Scattered groups, hiding throughout the galaxy. We thought Earth's relative isolation might offer sanctuary, but..." A warning tone from Jane's equipment interrupted them. Storm growled, his attention fixed on the window. The aurora outside had changed, its natural patterns disrupted by dark shapes moving through the light. Base alarms began to wail. "They're here," Lumina whispered. Jane's military training took over. "Can you move?" When Lumina nodded, Jane began disconnecting equipment. "We need to get to the vehicle bay. I have a modified Arctic terrain vehicle that..." The window exploded inward as something massive and dark crashed through. Storm launched himself at the intruder, a towering figure in sleek black armor. The Huskies' attack bought them precious seconds as Jane helped Lumina up. "The north tunnel," Jane directed, supporting Lumina's weight as they ran. Behind them, Storm disengaged from the attacker and bounded after them, snow-white fur dusted with shattered glass. The base's emergency lights cast everything in pulsing red as they navigated the underground corridors. Jane could hear weapons fire and shouting from above, the base's security forces engaging the invaders. "Your people are brave," Lumina observed as they moved, "but the Harvester's technology..." "Maybe," Jane interrupted, "but we're stubborn, and we know this terrain." They reached the vehicle bay where Jane's specially equipped Arctic exploration vehicle waited. "Plus, I've made some modifications of my own." The vehicle was a hybrid of military hardware and scientific equipment, designed for extended research missions in extreme conditions. Jane had extensively customized it for her veterinary work, including advanced life support systems. As they climbed aboard, the bay doors exploded inward. 3 Harvester troops entered, their armor seeming to absorb light itself. They raised weapons unlike anything Jane had seen before. "Hold on to something," Jane warned, gunning the engine. Instead of using the ramp, she crashed through the bay's side door, taking advantage of the vehicle's reinforced frame. They burst out into the Arctic night, now alive with combat. Harvester ships hung in the sky like black stars, exchanging fire with the base's defenses. Search beams swept the snow, seeking their escaped prize. "They'll track my energy signature," Lumina said urgently. "I'm putting you all in danger." Storm pressed against her reassuringly as Jane drove, expertly navigating the familiar terrain. You're not the only one who can adapt, she said, flipping switches on the dashboard. This vehicle's hull is lined with experimental metamaterials, combined with your crystalline structure. She glanced at Lumina. Think you can help me create some interference? Understanding dawned in Lumina's faceted eyes. She placed her hands on the vehicle's interior, her natural bioluminescence synchronizing with the metamaterial's properties. The air around them seemed to shimmer. Behind them, the harvester search beams swept past without pausing. It's working, Lumina breathed, hope entering her voice for the first time. But where can we go? They won't stop hunting. Jane smiled grimly, steering them toward where the aurora burned brightest. First, we find out exactly what these harvesters are capable of. Then, she met Lumina's crystalline gaze in the rearview mirror. We show them what humanity does when someone threatens our friends. The Arctic landscape blurred past as Jane pushed the vehicle to its limits. The aurora overhead had intensified to unprecedented levels, its curtains of light now rippling with strange interference patterns from the harvester ships. Storm sat alert in the back, watching their six, while Lumina maintained their energy camouflage. There's something you should know, Lumina said, her crystalline form pulsing with effort. The aurora, it's not just a natural phenomenon. My people created a network of energy conduits throughout habitable planets, hidden in their magnetic fields. Earth's aurora is part of that ancient network. Jane processed this as she navigated through a narrow ice canyon. That's why you crashed here? You were trying to access it? Yes. If I can interface with the network, I might be able to, Lumina's words cut off as the vehicle's sensors screamed. A massive energy surge lit up the sky. They're ionizing the atmosphere, Lumina warned. Trying to disrupt our camouflage. The aurora above them writhed, its colors shifting to deep crimson. The vehicle's systems flickered as electromagnetic interference increased. Jane's hands tightened on the controls as she spotted a natural ice tunnel ahead, one she'd used many times during research expeditions. Hold on. She gunned the engine, plunging them into the translucent blue passage. The tunnel's thick ice would shield them temporarily from the harvester's energy weapons, but they couldn't hide forever. Storm's bark alerted them to movement behind. Harvester ground units had deployed, their dark forms visible through the ice walls as they pursued on rapid deployment vehicles. The sound of their energy weapons charging echoed through the tunnel. Jane, Lumina's voice was urgent. The ice, its crystalline structure resonates with my own. I might be able to do it, Jane authorized, understanding instantly. She'd seen Lumina's ability to interact with crystalline formations. Lumina pressed her hands against the vehicle's ceiling, her energy extending outward into the ice tunnel. The walls began to pulse with her bioluminescence, creating a rippling pattern that spread rapidly ahead and behind them. The pursuing harvesters fired, but their energy bolts were absorbed by the now energized ice, redirected through the crystalline matrix Lumina had created. The tunnel behind them collapsed strategically, cutting off their pursuers. That was incredible, Jane breathed, but she could see the effort had drained Lumina significantly. Storm moved closer, lending his warmth and support. They emerged from the tunnel into a vast ice field, the crimson aurora painting everything in blood-red light. Harvester ships circled overhead like mechanical vultures, but they hadn't been spotted yet. The network node, Lumina gestured weakly toward a distant ice formation. It's there. If I can reach it. Jane studied their tactical options. The open ice field offered no cover, and their camouflage was weakening. But she'd spent years studying this terrain, knew its secrets. The ice here isn't solid, she explained, pulling up thermal imaging. There's a network of underwater channels. If we can reach them. The harvester's sensors would be useless, Lumina finished, understanding dawning in her crystalline eyes. Jane smiled grimly. And I didn't modify this vehicle for just surface travel. She activated the vehicle's amphibious systems, previously used for studying marine mammals. The wheels reconfigured, propulsion units emerging from hidden compartments. "You're full of surprises," Lumina observed, admiration clear in her voice. "You haven't seen anything yet." Jane steered them toward a specific point in the ice field. "Storm, safety harness." The Husky immediately moved to his designated secure position, well trained for emergency procedures. The harvesters were closing in, their ship's energy weapons charging. Jane waited until the last possible moment, then triggered the vehicle's modified sonic pulse, a tool originally designed for breaking ice during rescue operations. The ice beneath them shattered in a controlled pattern, and they plunged into the dark Arctic waters. Jane activated the external lights, revealing a maze of underwater ice tunnels. The node, Lumina directed, stronger now in the presence of the crystalline ice structures. "It's calling to me." As they navigated the underwater labyrinth, Jane realized this was more than just a chase or a rescue. They were on the verge of uncovering something that could change humanity's understanding of Earth itself, and their place in the cosmos. The underwater tunnels glowed with increasing intensity as they approached the network node. Lumina's crystalline form resonated with the ancient structures, filling the vehicle's cabin with prismatic light. Storm watched, fascinated, as patterns of energy danced across the ice walls. "My ancestors built this network millennia ago," Lumina explained, her voice filled with reverence. "Each node contains not just energy, but knowledge. History. Memory." The vehicle's sonar picked up movement above, harvester ships tracking their general direction through the ice, but unable to get a precise lock. Jane navigated deeper, following Lumina's guidance through the labyrinthine channels. There, Lumina pointed to a formation that seemed to pulse with inner light. The node chamber. Jane maneuvered their vehicle into a vast underwater cavern. At its center stood a crystalline spire that defied natural formation, its faceted surface etched with symbols that matched the patterns on Lumina's skin. "I've studied these waters for years," Jane said in awe. "How did we never find this? It only reveals itself to those who can resonate with its frequency." Lumina placed her hand against the vehicle's viewport. Like calls to like. A violent explosion rocked the cavern. The harvesters had started drilling through the ice above. They were out of time. "Whatever you need to do," Jane said, "do it fast." Lumina nodded. "I'll need to interface directly with the node." "But..." She hesitated. The energy transfer could be dangerous for organic life forms. Storm whined, pressing closer to Lumina protectively. Over their short time together, the Husky had grown remarkably attached to the crystalline being. "We're not leaving you," Jane stated firmly, already donning cold water gear. "Storm, stay with her. I'll secure the perimeter." As Jane exited the vehicle into the freezing water, she saw Lumina place her hand on Storm's head in a gesture of gratitude. The bond between them reminded her why she'd chosen this path, not just military service or veterinary medicine, but the fundamental drive to protect and heal. Lumina emerged from the vehicle, her crystalline form now fully immersed in the water. The effect was breathtaking. She seemed to become one with the surrounding ice, her natural bioluminescence creating patterns that mirrored the aurora above. She approached the central spire as Jane set up defensive positions with emergency underwater charges, another piece of equipment originally intended for ice research, now repurposed for survival. The chamber shuddered as another explosion hit closer. Chunks of ice fell from above, but the ancient structure held. Lumina reached the spire and pressed her hands against its surface. The reaction was immediate and spectacular. Energy coursed through the crystalline networks, transforming the entire chamber into a lattice of light. Information older than human civilization began flowing through the connection. Jane watched in amazement as Lumina's form absorbed and processed the ancient data. But something was wrong. Lumina's light began pulsing erratically, her form destabilizing under the massive energy transfer. Too much, she gasped. The network, it's been dormant so long, the power surge. Storm barked in alarm from inside the vehicle. Without hesitation, Jane swam to Lumina's side. The water around them crackled with energy, her suit sensors screaming warnings about radiation levels. Let me help, Jane reached for Lumina's hand. The energy could kill you. Trust me. Jane took Lumina's crystalline hand. The sensation was like grabbing a live wire, but she held on. Her medical training had taught her about energy transfer, about the body's natural electrical fields. Different scale, same principles. To her amazement, it worked. The energy found a new path, flowing through her and stabilizing the connection. Her vision filled with impossible colors as ancient knowledge flooded through their linked hands. Storm howled from the vehicle, and suddenly Jane understood. The bond between them, human, alien, and animal, it wasn't just about friendship or protection. It was proof that different forms of life could connect, could help each other survive and grow. The chamber's light reached a blinding intensity as the node fully activated. Above them, the aurora borealis transformed, its patterns shifting to reveal something hidden in Earth's magnetic field, something that would change everything. But the harvesters had breached the ice. Dark shapes descended through the holes above, and Jane knew the real battle was about to begin. The question was, could they hold out long enough for Lumina to complete the transfer? And what secrets would the ancient network reveal? The ancient chamber erupted into chaos as harvester troops descended through the broken ice ceiling. Jane released Lumina's hand and moved to defend her, the lingering energy making her nerves tingle. Storm's warning barks echoed through the underwater space as more dark figures entered. The transfer isn't complete, Lumina called out, her hand still connected to the node. 3 more minutes. Jane activated her planted charges strategically, causing controlled ice collapses that trapped several harvesters. But more kept coming. Their energy weapons were less effective underwater, but they compensated with brutal close-range combat tools. A massive harvester commander emerged from the central breach, its armor more elaborate than the others. It spoke, its voice distorting the water around them. Your species dies today, Crystal Bearer. Your energy will fuel our final conquest. Lumina's response was defiant. You never understood, did you? The network wasn't built for power. It was built for connection. The node pulsed brighter, and suddenly Jane understood what Lumina had discovered. The patterns in the aurora, the crystalline networks, they weren't weapons or power sources. They were a communication system, linking all living worlds. Storm launched himself through the water at a harvester approaching Lumina's blind spot. Despite the environment, the husky's training and protective instincts made him a formidable guardian. His attack created an opening Jane needed. She reached the vehicle's controls, activating its final modification, one she'd hoped never to use. The ultrasonic pulse, designed for emergency ice breaking, had been amplified. In water, surrounded by crystal. Lumina. The resonance frequency. Understanding flashed across Lumina's crystalline features. She shifted her energy output, harmonizing with the coming pulse. Everyone who's not a harvester, shut your eyes. The chamber exploded with light and sound. The crystalline structures amplified the pulse, creating a feedback loop that shattered the harvester's armor like glass. Their technology, designed to absorb energy, couldn't handle the overload. The harvester commander staggered but remained standing. It raised its weapon toward Lumina. If we cannot have your power, none shall. Jane moved without thinking, placing herself between Lumina and the blast. But Storm was faster. The husky collided with the commander, his momentum amplified by the water. They crashed into a crystal formation, which began to resonate with unexpected intensity. The node's light reached its peak. The transfer was complete. Lumina's voice rang out, carrying through water and crystal. It was never about power. It was about this. The aurora above transformed completely. Similar lights appeared in skies across the globe, hidden networks activating. And with them came signals, hundreds of them, from other crystalline beings in hiding across the galaxy. The network wasn't just a power grid, it was a beacon. The Harvester commander watched in disbelief as its ships above were surrounded by arriving vessels, crystalline ships of designs similar to Lumina's, but also others. Earth ships, responding to the signal. Humanity had seen the lights, understood the message, and chosen to act. "Your mistake," Jane said to the commander, "was thinking you could break bonds just because you couldn't measure them." Dawn broke over the Arctic ice as the combined fleet drove off the Harvester ships. In the chamber below, Lumina finally disconnected from the node, exhausted but triumphant. Storm swam to her side, ever protective, as Jane helped her back to the vehicle. "Earth's entry into the galactic community will be unique," Lumina said, her crystalline form reflecting the rising sun through the ice above. Other worlds joined out of fear or necessity. Humanity joined because we couldn't watch a friend suffer, Jane finished, scratching Storm's ears as the husky shook off water. Simple as that. The node pulsed one final time, its light now a permanent part of Earth's aurora. As they began their ascent to the surface, to a world forever changed, Jane reflected that the greatest discoveries often came not from seeking power, but from offering help to a stranger on a cold Arctic night. The crystalline ships above formed an honor guard as they surfaced. First contact had come not with conquest or fear, but with an act of kindness. And that, perhaps, made all the difference.